Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating, deeply esoteric research report from Alvarez Consulting. We're going to explore a really compelling argument, which is the idea that the serpent, long known as the ultimate symbol of deceit, was actually originally a universal symbol of wisdom, gnosis, and divine consciousness, and that it was deliberately rebranded as evil by the Western Church.
It's a pretty provocative thought, isn't it? What if the ultimate villain of Western history was actually the hero? We're diving into a rigorous, myth-busting investigation here that essentially asks us to reconsider literally everything we thought we knew about history's most notorious symbol. We're going to look at the historical, archaeological, and textual data that flips this ancient narrative completely upside down.
So here is our roadmap for decoding this research today. We'll explore the universal wisdom symbol, decode the Eden allegory, examine the church's rebranding, map revelation to human consciousness, and finally, look at the data behind reclaiming the serpent.
All right, Part 1, the universal wisdom symbol. According to the report, long before Western church councils ever convened, humanity universally venerated the serpent. And when you look at the sheer global consensus across 12 entirely distinct ancient traditions, it's kind of mind-blowing. Take the Egyptian tradition, for example. You have the Uraeus, which is that rearing cobra on the pharaoh's crown. That represented divine protection and the awakened third eye. In the Greek tradition, we have the Caduceus of Hermes and the rod of Asclepius. And think about it, that rod is actually still used as the global symbol for medicine today. Then you have the Hindu Kundalini representing ascending life force and the Mesoamerican Quetzalcoatl symbolizing human ascension. Across all these cultures, the serpent was always seen as a divine messenger.
But this is where it gets absolutely wild. Even within the original Hebrew tradition itself, the serpent had this incredibly positive, complex role. The research highlights that Moses actually healed the Israelites with a bronze serpent on a pole, called the Nehushtan. And later on, Jesus explicitly identifies his own redemption arc with that exact same serpent on the pole. Plus, if you look at Kabbalistic numerology, or gematria, the Hebrew word for serpent, which is Nahash, and the word for Messiah, Mashiach, both carry the exact same numerical value of 358. The researchers point out this is absolutely not a coincidence. It essentially encodes the idea that the serpent and the Messiah are actually two aspects of one unified redemptive arc.
Moving right along to Part 2, decoding the Eden allegory. So if the serpent was originally the good guy, what actually went down in the Garden of Eden? Well, mainstream scholarship suggests Eden is really a psycho-spiritual allegory, and the whole key lies in the language. The original Hebrew word used in Genesis is nakash. Scholars note that this doesn't just mean a literal garden snake. The root meanings translate to observe or divine, and to shine or be luminous. So, according to the original text, Eve wasn't talking to a reptile, she was speaking to a luminous divine being that practices divination. And what exactly was this luminous being offering? The fruit from the tree of knowledge. Now, the Hebrew phrase used translates to a very specific type of knowledge, what the Greeks called gnosis. Gnosis isn't just knowing facts, it's direct, intimate, experiential self-awareness. It's the literal ignition of self-aware consciousness. The research posits that a lower-order demiurgic creator actually wanted to keep humanity in a state of naive ignorance, and the serpent was stepping in to activate our divine self-awareness.
And this perfectly illustrates just how cross-cultural this story really is. The researchers highlight this incredibly precise structural parallel between the Hebrew Nahash and the Greek myth of Prometheus. Both of these myths describe a non-human agent who breaks the rules of a ruling authority to give humanity a forbidden gift of illumination. Prometheus offers divine fire against Zeus's prohibition, right? And the Nahash offers divine gnosis against YHW's prohibition. In both stories, the ruling authority responds by punishing the rule breaker and exiling humanity. It's like a giant puzzle. It is the exact same cosmological teaching, just told through two different cultural lenses.
Okay, Section 3, the Church's deliberate rebranding.
So you're probably wondering, if the serpent was this universally understood symbol of illumination, how on earth did it become the devil? Well, the shift was a highly calculated act of ideological warfare. If we trace the timeline, right around 180 CE, early church fathers like Irenaeus began systematically attacking Gnostic Christian schools. These were sects that actually venerated the serpent as an emissary of divine intelligence. Then, in 325 CE, the Council of Nicaea gave the Proto-Orthodox Church state power to enforce their specific canon, which led to the destruction of Gnostic texts. Finally, around 400 CE, Augustine of Hippo codified the doctrine of original sin, a move that required the serpent to be completely, 100% identified with Satan.
Augustine is really the pivotal figure here. You might actually recognize this famous quote from his Confessions. Our heart is restless until it reposes in thee. The research points out that Augustine cemented the serpent's purely evil status specifically to support his new doctrine. By framing all of human restlessness and inner struggle as the direct consequence of the serpent's deception, Augustine effectively positioned the institutional church as the sole provider of grace, basically the only solution to humanity's problems.
The report impartially points out the profound political utility of this theology. Just think about it for a second. If humanity is inherently depraved and broken from birth because of a cosmic catastrophe caused by an evil serpent, then human beings are totally incapable of self-directed spiritual development. They desperately need institutional mediation to be saved. By creating a maximally villainous serpent, the Church secured a monopoly over the most fundamental human concern of all, salvation.
Part 4. Revelation as a consciousness map.
Fast forward to the end of the Bible. The report suggests the book of Revelation isn't actually a geopolitical prophecy at all, but rather a map of internal spiritual states. Notice this fascinating alignment. The 7 seals in Revelation map with striking precision right onto the Vedic 7 chakra system of Kundalini awakening. The first seal aligns perfectly with the root chakra, representing basic survival instinct. The 4th seal, which involves death, aligns with the heart chakra and ego death, and the 7th seal, representing silence and heaven, aligns flawlessly with the crown chakra, the dissolution into divine union. It's a map of internal awakening. It's not a news forecast.
When you read Revelation through this consciousness cosmology, the symbols take on entirely new meanings. That great dragon being cast out of heaven, it isn't a historical monster. It represents the human mind successfully overcoming its lower, false ego self. And the infamous number 666, it symbolizes carbon, literally 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons, representing the unawakened, purely material human form. And the New Jerusalem descending isn't a physical city falling out of the sky. It is the state of Christ consciousness fully embodied within the individual.
And finally, Section 5, Reclaiming the Serpent. To ground these incredibly deep esoteric concepts, the research relies on a very rigorous probability framework, and the results are super compelling. Based on a massive convergence of evidence from global texts, historical data, and scholarly consensus, the analysis assigns an incredibly strong 89% confidence rating to its central thesis. The evidence overwhelmingly suggests that before the Church's canonization project, the serpent was universally understood as wisdom embodied and the true initiator of human self-awareness.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive paradigm shift to chew on. If the serpent was always intended to be a symbol of our own inner awakening, and that fundamental truth was systematically engineered out of our history just to consolidate power, what else has been hidden in plain sight? What other ancient truths are just waiting out there for us to rediscover them? Think about that as you process this explainer. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep questioning the symbols around you.